And that kind of sparked my interest in like the analytics world, but I was getting a finance and economics degree. So got a job in finance with Landry's restaurant company, was a financial analyst with them for years. Decided I wanted to go study grad school. As Myra said, there was not a lot of options back then. A lot of them were full-time in person, and A&M was starting out. So sent in my resume, got in, and then loved the program, and then sort of really pivoted to a more pure analytics role with an energy company after I graduated.
Awesome. I was fresh out of the military when I just kind of fell into analytics. My undergrad is actually in paralegal studies, so I had planned to go to law school and become a lawyer and do all of that. But at the time, no law firms were hiring, and so I just got hired on at this investment firm, moved up to be one of their analysts, a business analyst, and then a financial analyst. And I just kind of fell in love with it. And I thought, how do I take this a step further? Because at the time, like their analytics were pretty green. It was a lot of Excel analytics, nothing major with programming or any tools that could be useful to their company, especially with investments. So I researched programs, and I am the 14th graduate from A&M in my family. So naturally, I looked to see if there were any programs at Texas A&M, and I found this program, and it's very highly accredited, and it was a great program to go through, and it's only made my analytics better. So really happy to have done that.
Great, thanks. Shima, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, I think I was doing my MBA, and one of my favorite courses was operation research, which had like some analysis in Excel and some statistics. But right after my MBA, I started working in a chemical company in the marketing department. And so we had different marketing campaigns or marketing events. But I was always wanted to know, what is the impact of each of these campaigns? What is the return on investment? Which one actually increased the customer engagement, or which one has the highest impact on sales? So I had always this question in my mind. So I started doing some analysis based on what I learned in MBA during my MBA. But then I realized I really need to gain some academic knowledge. I need to understand data analysis. So I had this question in my mind, and I heard about data science degrees, and then I started doing some research. I was living in Houston, and I found this program, which was great because it wasn't based in Houston, and it was designed for working individuals. So it worked it was a very great fit for me. So that's why I, started to learn more, and I got enrolled for this program.
Great, thank you. So we have several prospective students I see online joining us as well. And I know they're going to love to hear y'all's response to this question. So describe a day in the life of your job as a data scientist or analytics professional.
Are we okay? I think I'll go first time. So to be honest, every day is kind of different. But if I were to just lay it out there, I'll go a week in the life. So there are some days where I'm focused mostly on the reporting side, data visualizations. We're trying to see what are the results and the outcomes of what we've done to impact pricing strategies and revenue in the company. And then the other piece is digging into leaks in the system or opportunities to build on analytics and build on, I'm specifically in revenue management at the food distribution company. So we focus on what customers could be buying or should be buying more of. And how do we cluster segment them into different categories so we can target them for different pricing strategies. So half of it is a lot of reporting, and then the other half is getting to actually dig into the data and build out those tools.
I'll agree with her. It's kind of definitely each day can be different, which is what I like. I feel like in financial analysis, it was very much you do this report at this time of the week, and then you do this report at the end of the month, you do this quarterly reporting. And there is still some of that comes through with it, but a lot of it is data visualizations, keeping up with. I kind of manage one of our databases that feeds a lot of our executive dashboards. So there is some kind of just housekeeping, making sure all of those work and things are on top of that kind of happen annually. And then for daily, and then a lot of it's digging into the data. I'm kind of in a position where I do have a lot of kind of autonomy to like find new projects. And so sometimes if there's something we haven't researched before, I'll be able to grab a data set and do that. We also just have regular communications. I work in the marketing on the residential side. So we do a lot of communications to our customers about their energy usage, their bills, other things that we're able to use their historical interval data, their usage on. So a lot of it is creating different analytics and things that I send over to our customers on a fairly regular basis. So there's some monotonous stuff and then some kind of free, a lot of data cleaning, a lot of it is I've grown in it too. It's been a lot of even just being the subject matter expert on meetings, of coming in and saying, well, this is held here. This is how we would access it. This is something similar we've done before, and some analysis. So it is, as I've gone up in my career, that's pivoted a little bit, but there still is a lot of the data cleaning, or we've got a new system, working through that and figuring out that for the team and others.
Exciting. Data cleaning.
Never goes away.
Yeah. 80% of the job, data cleaning, making sure the data is right.
Shima, what does your day look like?
Yeah, I just echo what they said. Same thing. There is like every day is different. So you usually have, so for my experience, usually we have some kind of visualizations or a dashboard, like something that we maintain, we have created. So one part of the everyday is just maintaining, making sure that the data visualization or the reports that we have is working fine. There is no issue with them, no broken link or nothing like that. So making sure, our audience or the people are using the report, they are getting the correct information. So, and then I think one part of the analytics work is just project management and also dealing with different stakeholders. I think different kind of stakeholders, making sure you are able to translate the findings or data insights to different audience. I think that's another part. But then the other part is just development, making sure like creating SQL queries, ETL processes, and dashboards for different teams. So I think just overall different like project management, development, and also relation with different stakeholders and teams.
Wonderful. What job duty do you spend most of your time on currently, Shima?
I think all of the above, but development, for just my experience, different industry development was most of the time took majority of my time, and this is something I really enjoy most. So rather, I'd like to write queries and get the definition, talk about the logic, and then start creating different dashboards or reports or ad hoc project or A/B testing. So the development is something that I enjoy the most, and I spend most of my time.
Great. What about you, Lauren? What's the one thing that you spend most of your time on?
Keeping the ship afloat. I'm just kidding. I had somebody from the program that worked with me and worked with me for 6 years and recently left. So a lot of my current day is just getting everything done. But I think the majority is, like I said, our customer facing analytics is kind of a really big chunk of my job, and then kind of creating new analytics for customers that we can send out to them to help them understand their energy usage, control their energy usage, control their carbon footprint. So that's kind of one of the biggest things I think that's kind of my overarching job for a lot of functions.
Yeah. For me, it's a lot of, these days, it's a lot of data visualization and reporting, and just making sure that all of these dashboards that we're setting up and creating through Tableau and posting are usable for multiple different departments and different levels that we're opening it up to. So making sure it's usable and accessible to them in a way that is different from, say, an analyst, that we're looking at it and we can manipulate and click all these buttons and make sure that we're seeing what we need to see. It's got to be accessible to everybody. So a lot of it lately has been making sure that the reporting tools are being able to communicate in a consistent and easy to understand way.
Great. You guys are doing some impactful work, working for a food distribution company, it comes into kind of just general logistics of making sure restaurants and different places have the food that they need and able to feed people, right?
Right.
A fundamental need. And then, of course, you with looking at energy usage and carbon footprint and being more responsible users, saving the earth and all of that good stuff, but just being good citizens. What would you say is your vision for analytics in your
I would say, I would hope that every department across the industry, the company, any company really, would have an analyst or a team of analysts within each department, because nothing is going to get accomplished if you're just passing along information or you're looking at information you don't understand. Or I feel like every department has an opportunity to really dig deep into what's happening, how their piece of the pie is affecting other people. And that's only accomplished through analysts. So really, and I feel like if it were up to me, there would be one of us in every department across the industry.
It's funny you say that. That's kind of my vision too. But to the point of I'm actually getting to sort of create my vision at my company. I've been working with my VP to figure out like how can we infiltrate analytics everywhere versus being a combined team. And so we're kind of starting to work through potentially even a process of like new employees coming through our team and then pushed elsewhere to like learn some of the analytics skills and then go elsewhere to go help the pricing team, to go help the marketing, true marketing team. And like, so I think that's to your point, having analytics everywhere and having some knowledge everywhere, growing the knowledge base, I think is huge. So as an actual kind of structure of how I see it, that's kind of my vision with my company is being able to share the knowledge and share the abilities for people to get deep insights in all areas of the company. And then aside from that, I work for Constellation. We're America's clean energy choice. And so I really do think the pivot on really helping people reduce their carbon footprint, help with, you know, as things are changing around us and as energy sources are changing, being kind of the go-to expert in both the knowledge and the understanding of customers' energy usage and then how they can change that and adjust that and how small changes of their own, they can affect their carbon footprint, even just by changing the time of day and getting, and that kind of mass data, being able to boil it down so that customers as well as internal and external are able to use the data that we're able to provide.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's the same in your industry, but in mine, there's a lot of tenured, 20-year people that work in these departments and are the head, and they're working a lot off of feeling. Well, I've been in this industry for 20, 30 years. I feel like this is what my customers are doing. And analysts kind of reel that back in and show them data and actual statistics on what's really happening in their department. And a lot of times it goes against what they're feeling, or and sometimes it does support that, but then that's just another emphasis on what we should be doing as far as strategies within each department.
That's always fun when you find a project and you're like, this isn't what you're going to like.
Yes.
But the numbers say differently than what you think.
Beautiful. Shima, what about you? Do you have a vision for your organization?
Yeah, I think just moving forward to evolve analytics strategies just beyond the spreadsheets, data silos, and also like manual processes, and just more streamlining, different reports and building some self-service capabilities for different stakeholders and teams so that everybody can use use the benefit of, use the analytics and also have that benefit in, have the insights for their team. So I think just making sure everybody is able to use it and the data and the insight was created is actually something that everybody in every level can use it and also just take advantage of. So that's something that I'm hoping for.
Sure. So now we understand that confidentiality is important to maintain your competitive advantage, but we would like to know if you are able to share any interesting projects that you all are doing with analytics. So Laura.
Okay, I'll start. I already kind of talked to this a little bit, so I feel fine talking to it. And if you become our customer, you get these analytics. So one of the big things that I've been heavily working on is the kind of the customer facing ones. One of the things that I created kind of early pandemic was a bill projection model using customers' historical interval usage data and combining that with their current monthly bill. People's energy bills is one of those things that you kind of know your cell phone bill, you know, your Netflix bill, you know these, but that energy bill can swing, especially in Texas, very greatly. And so that was one of those, trying to remove sticker shock from customers, trying to let them know where they're at each week of the month before they hit that final bill, to help them both budget, help them adjust if they can, help them just be aware of it. We also started sending them proactive alerts if their energy usage looks like they have an AC problem. So I won't get into details, but you can kind of, energy usage, you can kind of flag sometimes if there's if your AC isn't working properly, that can be relevant, and you can tell that from the data sometimes. And so we have a home services branch, and we work to incorporate going and being proactive to send an alert to customer that, hey, there might be something wrong before it breaks. And I think that's been a really neat part of my job, is that kind of helping customers actually know things, hopefully avoid a break in the summertime, flag them before, and then kind of really helping them manage that so they can cut that usage down.
For me, I think the most impactful customer-facing analytics project that I've worked on is segmenting customers by cuisine types, and then offering specialized pricing based off of their cuisine. So for instance, if you're an Italian customer, you might get a discount on pasta. If you're a Mexican customer, you might get a discount on ground beef and tortillas, things like that. And that's the most impactful customer facing thing I think I've worked on. And then I've also been a part of a project, I guess a self-inflicted project of there was a time in our company where our back-end technology team, they were 3 to 6 months out on making any new enhancements for our internal team. So I took it upon myself to write some code that would automate some processes for us, because nobody wants to sit there and arduously click through the same screen to make all these settings. And I still think they use that today, even though I'm removed from that team now. But so that was the best internal facing impactful project that I got to work on.
Awesome. Shima.
Yeah, so for me, I was working in an insurance company, and they were using many outsourced platforms, so which was very costly. I was working in a business intelligence department that time, and then me and my team, we started creating some Tableau dashboards, starting from creating the ETL, bringing the logic in-house, and based on the ETL, the logic, and the data sources that we built, we developed some Tableau reports. So by having those internal Tableau reports, the company was able to retire those outsourced platforms that they were using. It was very impactful because we provided even more reports or insights for the business, and also they didn't have to pay so like a high cost for all of those platforms that they were using. So it was very highly impactful for the company, and also our team was got a lot of recognitions for that.
Thank you, Shima.
Of course.
So, success does not come without failure. Can you think of a failed analytics project that either of you have done? And then what were your takeaways? What was what did you learn from that?
I think mine kind of comes with the customer facing segmentation, because we were trying to find correlations between what customers would buy, what products they would buy, and what pricing that they would want. And I went through several correlation tests, fold out methods, Wilcox tests, just trying to figure out what's the best methodology to get these customers the price they want, the items they want, and are our segments appropriate for these customers. And it was a lot of trial and error, and a lot of, I grabbed all the data, all the variables, I ran it through this model. Nothing came of it. There were no answers, nothing solid, no big correlation or aha moments. And so I'd have to completely start over, go from scratch, find another model, and go through the process. And I probably went through that 4 or 5 times before we actually settled and found a light at the end of the tunnel and were able to move forward with implementation.
I like to call it learnings, not failure. Is that I like to present it to people. But one of the biggest learnings, I think, that's continued to kind of be my white whale haunt, is really understanding customers that leave mid-contract. And we've done some modeling on it, and we've kind of come up we learned things that aren't impactful towards that. And we've done that. And then some of that's been sidetracked over the years with other projects. We've had more customer facing, but it was a couple of years there where I had a few different iterations of this same kind of modeling, and then between the shift in the market and online and digital. And so overall customer details changing, we just couldn't get that pinpoint model down. But we did learn about what doesn't work. And also it was a good reason to find where some data is located and start even where you might have failings. Okay, well, now I'm pulling in billing data for customers, and I have an easy way to store it and access it to incorporate it into other models and things. So there's always good that comes from learnings.
Shima.
Yeah, so in one of the companies I worked, I inherited some dashboards, Tableau dashboards that was showing sales data for our sales team. So those reports were showing data, but it wasn't consistent. So like they had some broken links. One day they were updating at 10 a.m. One day they were updating 2 p.m. So I tried to maintain what was there. I didn't want to create any new report. I didn't want to go through the development process. But soon enough, I just realized it's not possible. This is not going to work. So I received so many feedbacks from sales team that they wanted to see the report at the same certain time every day. So inconsistency was not something that they wanted. So like the sales VP was telling me every day, so if we don't see this data, we are kind of blind to our business. So we need to see this data. So what I learned, it was like, I cannot maintain some report that doesn't work and is inconsistent. So what I did, I started to build everything from scratch, created the different ETL processes, removed all the manual pieces that was involved in the report, and streamlined everything, created the same format for all of the sales channels. So the teams, they could see the same, like for example, like one metric was available in one dashboard and which wasn't available in a different dashboard. So what I did, I created the same kind of look and format, same visualization for all the channels, and also streamlined all the manual processes to make sure everything works and everything is updating at the same time. So that was my learning process, and also something that helped the team later to be able to have the insight, consistently every day.
Sounds like she was a hero. Well, some of you have already been in male-dominated fields and may be immune to kind of the differences. But do you see any challenges or perceive any challenges as a woman in analytics, or flipping it? Do you see any advantages?
Okay, I'll go first. So I came from male-dominated fields from the military, and now I'm in a male-dominated field in the food industry. And then again, with analytics, and you layer all that together. And there's a pro and a con, and they hang on your every word. I feel like when you're going into a meeting and you're presenting your data and you're presenting your findings or your models, they're hanging on everything that you say. And that's not always a great thing, or it is, depending on how thorough you are. But so there's a pro that they are listening to everything that you have to say. So everything that you're telling them and you're offering up, they're taking it in a lot more so than maybe the male counterparts, where the trust is already there, the reliance is already there, or they just naturally see them in meetings. So they're not, it's just another day for them. But then seeing a woman's but then on the flip side, they could be a little more critical. They're looking for holes in what you're doing. So I feel like as a woman, I have to be a lot more prepared, and I have to think of all the different nuances that comes with whatever model or whatever data I'm presenting, and think of all the different angles, so that when they do try to pick holes, I'm ready for the answers, which I think only makes me a better analyst anyway. But yeah.
I kind of have an interesting segment where our whole analytics team is female, and they have been there since I started. It's kind of interesting. We hire the best, but it just has happened every time lately. So it's interesting, and that's kind of been a different, I think, world than than most other analytics departments elsewhere, but I had been in finance. So I've always kind of been a little more in the male dominated fields as a whole. And I think to your point, I think it's just really knowing things together and gaining that respect level between it. And some of it has been, I've seen more issues almost in age and because of coming in with numbers and data, and you've got the feel people. And so making sure that that can be justified. I've had a couple different projects where the analysis did not align with anything that they thought was, and then we got into it and there was some fraud going on. And so we were able to uncover something. And I think throughout projects like that, where things were popping up that didn't align with people who had come from more of an, energy engineering background, electrical engineering background and management, had been in the industry for 30 or 40 years, kind of think a few of those wins really helped solidify the okay, this is it's worth our time to have this avenue of it. So kind of being able to do that and has helped, I think, bridge the gap some there.
Shima, what about you?
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like, especially like if you're an analyst or senior analyst level, maybe you don't see the difference that much. But like when you are in like you are leading a team or a managerial position, I felt sometimes that I had to prove myself more than a male counterpart. So I had to know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes I noticed like maybe a male counterpart, they were talking very broadly about analytics concept and everybody were approving it. But for me, I had to definitely prove myself, more. So it happened, but like most of the time you get a lot of support too. So it's not very, how can I say, it's not something that made me like stop what I was doing, or I didn't want to continue in that, analytics, but definitely sometimes it's like higher pressure.
Yeah, totally agree.
Sure. So in analytics education, we talk about the importance of people skills or human skills, such as presence, interpersonal skills, and leadership. As analytics professionals, why are soft skills important as a leader in analytics?
I think they're extremely important. I think like I was saying, some of these projects you're bringing forward numbers that completely go against what somebody's historical thought process was for an industry. And I think being able to really being able to tell your point or explain without getting extremely technical when you're talking to people outside is the only way you get any buy-in in a company, and the only way you really get to the application of that. I noticed earlier when you were talking about dashboards, and there's an analyst level and then there's an executive level with it, and having that, making sure your visualizations actually can speak and that you can both explain them as well as in person and have that. I talked to our CIO not that long ago about even once you start getting into machine learning levels of how do you get the buy-in, and then how do you explain it and say it's a black box. Like we don't, explaining how to do that kind of modeling to somebody that wants to know all the details when there's not necessarily details, there's an output and you can make a decision based on it. And so I think the soft skills really come into play with the more complicated the analytics, the more complicated you're getting with your analysis. I think that those skills are extremely important to layer on with it to get the buy-in, or else it'll just your work will be not used.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think if you could have the best model in the world, you can have the most solid plan of action, you can have a lot of data backing your points, but if you're not able to convey your results or explain how you got where you got and what it all means, then at that point it's just numbers on paper, graphs on paper, and nobody's going to, like you said, have any buy-in towards your project. And I also think it's important if you want to get ahead and move into leadership, because you're going to be talking to people where you might be in the receiving end of that seat and listening to another analyst tell you about their model, and you have no idea what they've been doing on the back end, and you're receiving that information. So you've got to think of it from both ends of, if I were in the seat receiving this information and I had no idea what this person was doing, would I understand and buy into what they're talking about? Would I have their support, or would I support them in the project? And how does this impact the company?
Shima.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So it's really important because you need to be able to translate your finding to the broad audience. Sometimes they don't understand the data language. So you need to definitely be able to translate what you found about the data or in a business language. I remember I was reporting for a while, I was reporting to a leader who wasn't technical at all. If he was a finance leader and he didn't know any SQL background or any data background. He had a lot of good business knowledge. One of my one-on-ones, I showed him my codes, like my SQL codes, and then he was like, "Oh, stop! Don't even show that to me." So I think it's like he just didn't want that, the data language. So you need to be able to translate what is the impact of this project or this data visualization, what this dashboard shows. So I think this is definitely a very important skill that needs to be really you need to have in order to be successful.
So balancing, there are many project management approaches in business. What is your first step in approaching an analytics project?
My first step, I start at the end. So I want to know what's the end result. What are people looking for at the bottom line? What are the key points of interest? And I back into it from that. So if I want to know like how many cases we're selling a customer, that's my ultimate goal. And I'll back into it. Okay, what data do I need to get there? So then I start with the variables, the customers. How many weeks, and you just sort of build it out, and I'll write it on a piece of paper of all the different variables I need and how they correspond with the end goal or the final key points that I want to make in the project. And then from there, I can bridge the gap on either building out a model or building out a visualization tool, cleaning the data, making sure that the data is usable, and that's it.
My answer is going to be very similar, but the figuring out what you want is the biggest piece, because you can get into anything and you need to know where you're going. Especially if I'm project managing for another team, trying to understand getting to what they actually want, because sometimes I'll get requests that I'm like, I don't think this is useful, and but you can't go at it that way. So you'll kind of come back to them, I think, and really have that understanding of what is your end goal and how can we get you to that, and what are the steps to that? Because I think so often it's easy to jump into something or just want to, they used to say in grad school, but it was a boil the ocean. You're like, no, what do you want? And how can we get to that in kind of the best way possible with what we've got?
Shima.
Yeah, same thing, just understanding the real project or what exactly the stakeholder wants, and also then deciding what kind of tools do you want to use, or if it's an ad hoc project or your approach is creating a report. This is which runs on a certain cadence. So it's just understanding what the stakeholder wants and also providing your input. Like sometimes they want something that you feel like it doesn't like you have done something similar, and then if we use this tool, it's better. So just you can work as a thought partner with the stakeholders and work with them to see like what is the best approach for the project. And also overall for in analytics, I feel like the project management is very important. One thing I learned, I use the Eisenhower matrix, which is about the urgency and importance. So I think it's important to understand if the project is really urgent and how important the project is. So do you want to give it a higher priority, or do you want to have it in a backlog? So it's also important to make sure you prioritize your project to have a work-life balance or work-life harmony.
That's a good point, figuring out priority. So that goes with our next one. Balancing work and personal lives and school is very stressful. And in fact, it's never really balanced, right? You're always sacrificing one for the other. What are some strategies that helped you juggling home, work, school?
My first thing before I even applied to this program was knowing that I work full time. I'll now be in a program that's going to take up most of the rest of my time. So what kind of support do I have backing me? And then how do I prioritize their needs outside of school needs and work needs? And I was lucky enough to have a really strong support system in my husband, and we had a small child at the time. I think she was only 2 years old when I started. So it is a lot to handle, but having those conversations with your support team of this is the time commitment, but it's only temporary. I'm only going to be doing this for a short while. And then I need you to express to me, okay, you're spending a lot of time here. So can we prioritize an hour a week where we just sit down and watch a movie and make popcorn together? Or, hey, I need help because you've been focusing so much on your homework and regular work and you're not spending a lot of time with me. It's that open communication. So it does get out of balance sometimes, but making sure that your support system is there to kind of rein you in and making sure that they know that they have to be openly communicative so that you're not just dropping the ball on them. Because yes, they end up kind of going to the back burner because you're so focused on driving your goals forward. I feel like that maybe sometimes that does happen, and just making sure that you rein it in, you come back together at the end of the week and have those conversations and take time.
I agree. It's a lot. It's a lot balancing it all. I'll kind of go to the other point of even the employer, making sure there's some employer buy-in. I was very open about doing school. I had to kind of shift my hours to come out to city center. There'd be times where I'm like, you know what, I need to study for a little bit. I've got a test. And so I think making sure that kind of you have that buy-in both at home and then also at work, I think is really important so that there is the understanding of what's on your plate and that there's an awareness of your time being stretched thin and your need to be places and be kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Sheena?
Yeah, I agree. So sometimes it's very challenging making sure if you are working full time, you have your family and also working at school. It's not easy sometimes. And I think one thing, again, yeah, same thing. If you can have some support system at work and also at home, it's great. So it will be very helpful. And also one thing, I feel like don't feel overwhelmed, although sometimes it feels very overwhelming, but let's focus on what you need to learn and don't feel overwhelmed with a lot of data or information everywhere. So I think it can be helpful for you. And then some meditation technique also can be helpful. So because it's challenging, but it's for a short period of time, and definitely worth it.
I think to your point with the communication piece, even communicating with your cohort and your team members, we were a lot smaller group, but we did have, we had people go through different things in their personal life. And so sometimes that led to, hey, I'm going to take a little more work on this project because it's obviously, you have personal, you don't have to cross all of it. But I thought that was one nice part of the kind of small group is we did know at times that people were going through stuff so group projects might have fallen on you a little bit if you had a hard time, so there was definitely a lot of communication in kind of all areas of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So you all were in data intense positions, as an applicant and then after your completion of the program. What advice do you have about career transition into this?
I think be open to switching industries if you want. Like there's certain industries you're going to find. Like I originally even tried to stay within my company and there were some different options. But there just wasn't the right fit at it. So looking around, I think being willing to learn, there's also opportunities too. If it's sometimes a big piece that's been the most helpful, even as my career progresses, is my subject matter expertise of my industry. And so you can use that to your advantage to try to work into more data intensive or more analytics intensive positions within your company. And I think that can add a lot of value by layering it in or, doing an ad hoc project. We've had some people in my company that got MBAs and took a couple statistics classes. And so I kind of gave them some data they wanted to like, so they could do some projects or do, some clustering and doing some different pieces that they wanted to do to test it out. So I think even reaching out, I've had people all over my company reach out to me because they see the analytics title and they'll see me somewhere or talk at a town hall. So I think reaching out to those within your network too, and within your company, I'm always happy to talk to whoever sends me emails. So
Yeah. I think it's important to understand that you're not always going to know how you're going to use this information at the time or later. And it's okay to not know when or how you're going to use everything that you learn in the program, but to take it for what it is and soak it all in, because I had no idea when I started this program. We weren't using any of these languages. We weren't using any of these programs. And I was thinking, oh no, is this ever going to be useful for me eventually? I mean, the statistics side, it's great. And these are good tools, but I was nervous that I wasn't going to ever use it or get the opportunity. And now working for Cisco, I'm using it, all the tools every day. And it's been a real benefit. So it's okay to not know how or when you may use this information, but to be open to the possibility of using it later or soaking up all the information that you can from each tool in each class that you take. And just networking with your cohort. Don't stay in your little bubble. We're all here to support each other, not only on like the personal side, like you said, but the professional side as well.
Shima.
Yeah, I think just learning different tools can be very helpful, and also reading about what is the tool that the industry is using now, or what kind of Python package you need to learn, or Python library you can use for this kind of analysis. I think just learn all the time. Just be trying to learn everything all the time. Not everything, but just be open to new tools or new techniques for analytics. I think it's important. Even in when like each job, so for example, one team uses certain tools, also have like talk to the different team that they are using different techniques or tools and try to be open and learn as much as you can. I think this can be very helpful. And then so eventually you will find what you would like to focus on in analytics, because it's a broad subject.
Sure. Given the pandemic and its many challenges, can you think of instances in which analytics helped your organization? I bet you guys have some interesting stories in which you had to make maybe big or really dynamic business decisions quickly using data and analytics. Can you share one?
So I started at my company kind of in the middle of the pandemic. And what's interesting is that, I mean, not only did share drop and we were kind of in a panic, trying to figure out how to recover business and recover share and cases and customers, everything was kind of dropping off because it was restaurants. They're all closed down and there's not much that we can do about it. But for a long time, we kind of ignored all of 2020 and as part of our analytics. So not only are we trying to figure out, is this ever going to recover and how is it going to recover? But we kind of had to ignore that the pandemic happened because the industry did recover and it was starting to, but we couldn't rely on seasonal changes because of this 1 year. So working around the data in that way was kind of interesting, and trying to figure out new tools because everybody is now working from home or they're offering different products at their restaurants and different to-go options. Like a lot of the industry did change and we had to react to that with no prior data to work off of.
Yeah, we had kind of two big, one of them was in the bill prediction model, just making sure we were making an adjustment. So I had to kind of do a lot of analysis on customers and in kind of a short period of time, what their energy usage was, because suddenly you have people that are home 7 days a week instead of, at work, and then you go up when you come home and then the weekends are high. So we had to adjust some of our models for that fairly quickly. And then another big, this is not pandemic related, but it did happen during the pandemic, is the ice storm that we lost about $1 billion in a week. So that was kind of big and very quick. And I was one of the people who owned sort of our interval data for customers. And so we had our commercial and industrial team in Texas coming because a lot of those people were on index plans, meaning their prices go with the market. And so they were coming, a lot of their sales managers were coming to me, trying to get me if I could do some kind of basically interwave in the bill piece with their energy usage very quickly, so they could start having conversations with some of these customers about what the scenario was and what these customers were looking at to try to have the best interaction you can in a $10,000 bill.
Yeah.
So it's so it was kind of pandemic related. It was all at home, so it was but
Yeah, the good thing is you could run to your closet and kind of.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's the nice part, you're off camera for a minute, back on, you're like, okay, I'm good. I just,
Good. Shima, any examples?
Yeah, just overall, I think what helped us, we try to be very proactive about the impact of COVID. We did some data analysis and we figured something quickly. Just broadly, we were able to be very proactive about our customers and figured out what impact is going to have on our business if we don't have some guidelines or protocols. So that actually, based on the data and some early analysis, was very helpful for the company to have some guidelines and some procedures to avoid any impact on customers.
Great, thank you. Okay, this is our last question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. And this comes from Stephanie, basically wondering, you're all in different industries. How do you keep up with analytics advancements? Do you keep up across the board or just within your industry? How do you learn about new tools, that kind of stuff? Kind of what's your professional development methodology right now?
I think I just Google a lot of things, or somebody trying to solve a problem.
Stack Overflow.
People do. If a lot of times it comes from a problem of like, I want to solve this, but I don't have the skill set. Like, what can I do to solve this problem? But other things we do, I like going to conferences. I know that was a little off for COVID, but starting to go back. I try to go to even just like marketing analytics conferences to really see how other people are using it, even in other industries, to understand what, kind of gold standards are. And as the analytics industry, like I've become kind of one of the experts to give guidance to management for where we should be going, what softwares, et cetera, we should be using. And so I definitely enjoy conferences and talking to people that are outside of my field or my industry to see where they are and what they're using.
It's such a
Yeah.
fast-paced industry, right? Like
And
new
changes every day.
tools, changes all the time.
New models,
New
new
vendors,
tests.
Yes,
Mhm.
models, tests. Shima, anything you do in particular for professional development?
There's a lot of reading, so I found so many good resources. I like Coursera, so if I want to learn about something which is very new, I try Coursera. And also toward data sciences, I usually go to that website and I find good articles and with a lot of good examples. And yeah, I think just reading and Googling a lot. Yeah, whenever I want to do something, some hands-on work I have, so I just Google a lot. I just Google the question, and there are so many resources and so many people ask
Yeah.
the same question before, so which is very helpful.
Definitely.
All right, so thank you panelists. But if anybody in Zoom has a question, you can either unmute yourself and ask it. And also chat it as well as our people here in Houston as well. So anybody has any questions to our panelists, please go ahead.
Okay, so I've been with the same company for almost 12 years now. So resume building within the same company, like looking to go elsewhere, but also a career change. How does that resume look, especially now with COVID, where people are okay with like a work gap? I got furloughed for a little bit, but still at the same company, but transitioned from retail buying to now the IT analyst position. How does that resume look? Do you state things that were before your analyst role? Like how does a good resume look to jump in?
I've just looked through about 50 resumes on
Okay.
Friday for data scientists. This is kind of fresh. At least me, I'm not going to speak for everyone,
Yeah.
but one of the things I really enjoyed and that stuck out is projects people worked on.
Okay.
So I think, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll scan your company. If there's one small gap, I'm not going to think twice about it. Like, it's not going to be a huge deal because you never know.
Right.
But when I'm skimming a resume just to kind of be ordering them to send to HR, I really enjoyed these projects and the breakdown of and kind of where you do. And I think that's a way you can also resume build within your company and your thing is do work on a different project, go between, you can do a cross team project, talk about, I think there's ways you can build your resume without job hopping or without even a totally new role by kind of explaining. And I always feel like at least friends of mine, they don't think about how to word stuff. Like some of the projects, like it is really think about it. 'Cause it's like, hey, I worked on a cross team project with IT and marketing and this, but you think about it as like, oh, this was this little thing I did. But then when I'm reading, I'm like, oh, this person can work with separate teams. This person can. So I think really pulling out what you've done historically and putting that out there, I think that's, at least to me, I really liked that. And there's also, with us tech, obviously we look at some of it where it'll be, what are your technical skills, and kind of just skim through. And normally with mine, I'm, a couple languages, you can code, you've gotten some experience with it, depending on the level we're hiring. It's not going to be come in and code test for me. I'm like, you can kind of see somebody can problem solve with that. But I found it really interesting. Me and my boss kept talking. We're like, see the person that did the Spotify model, and like we kind of stuck out to us in some of these projects listed.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it really depends on the position you're going for too. If you're transitioning from an analyst to a manager, well, how did your analytics projects lead your team, or how did you explain that to leadership? Do you have good communication skills from that role to your executive team and things like that? I don't think so. I don't think because of the pandemic and everything that's been going on in the world that such a gap in your career is going to be detrimental to anybody. As long as you can explain what did you do in that time? Were you building your soft skills? Were you building other skills? Were you learning new techniques, modeling or coding or anything like that? If you can explain how you were productive in that time, nobody's going to really fault you for having any gaps. And then just building out, like she said, projects, something that you can really say, this was what I did for my team. This was the result numbers wise. And this is how they use it today. That would be like a really strong bullet point under whatever job that you've had before.
I see a lot of people forget to share the impact of the project, right?
Yeah.
Financial value, or this impacted 900 million customers, or
Yeah.
the impact is huge. And I think it's that idea of showing, not telling, right? Like I can list all my skills, but if I can show you, like, check out this project I did on GitHub or something like that, it's a lot easier.
It stands out. I've noticed that when I was just skimming through.
Yeah, especially with this role, a little bit more quantitative than qualitative.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies use the STAR method when going through interview process. So I would put that little nugget out there whenever, especially as you get higher in companies and corporations, just Google the STAR method and it'll explain how to hit on each point. It's basically talking about the situation, how you handled it, quantitative, stuff like
I
that.
believe our career management center walks our students through.
The STAR.
Yeah. STAR.
All right, so just to be respectful of everybody's time, I'll take one more question, and this is from Becky. She's online. Is it necessary or beneficial to add certifications in addition to the MSA degree, something like Azure or other cloud services?
Yes,
Mhm.
I say that as somebody that it's not going to make or break, but like you say, Azure cloud services, we use Azure and we're for some of these pieces. So if I know something, you never know where you're going to hit that somebody's using that. And I would look at that if somebody said, hey, cloud certified in Azure, that would pique my interest because of what we're doing. So I think any of those certifications, any kind of, hard technical skills you might have, I think are helpful just because you don't know what every company uses. So that might be the thing that kind of gets somebody's attention.
Or me as a manager, if I'm looking at a resume, I'm looking to see, yes, you've got the education, you've got the experience at another company, but are you doing anything outside of work and school to pursue your own personal development? And certifications are a really good key indicator that you're willing to go above and beyond, not just at the company that you're applying for, but in your own personal industry, I guess, in analytics. So the Coursera that Shima mentioned is like a great something to list.
All right, so I'm going to share one more slide with you all. As a former faculty member would say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Let me see if I can put it here.
It's showing up.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, awesome. So if you like what you saw, thank you for all for coming to our event. If you like what you saw and were impressed by the caliber of our students, we do invite you to apply to our program. It's a 5-semester part-time program designed for you all to work during the day and come to school at night. We have monthly deadlines. However, we do encourage applicants to apply as early as possible as space does fill up. As a popular phrase here in Houston, level up. If you want to level up your careers, you come to MS Analytics here at Texas A&M. Thank you all for coming. And this last slide for if you want to QR the application, you can go ahead and do so. But thank you, Shima. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Stephanie, for being here. Thank you to our guests for carving out some times in your busy schedules to come here and listen to our students and a little bit about our program. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Shima. Thank you.
Bye.
Shima.
Thank you.
Bye.
We have a small thank you for you guys.
Oh,
Thank
thanks
you.
so much. Yes, I love that.
I really do appreciate you.
Thank you.
Schedules.
Oh, this is so cute.
with us.